And they all hated John Glenn because he was a born-again Christian. And when he showed up, he ratted them all out to NASA.
Oh, really?
They're not studying. Guys? They're just surfing and having sex and drinking beer. And NASA...
and the nerds brought down the hammer on them, huh?
Yeah, but their defense was, there's nothing for us. There's program.
Yeah, right.
The iPhone has more technology than what landed on the moon.
Yeah.
I mean,
Because your iPhone landed on the moon? No.
My iPhone right now is on the moon. That's why it's not on my person.
Pour a little bit out for John Glenn, huh? The poor guy.
You know, a lot of Twitter people have his photo of him in his spacesuit as like their new avatar on Twitter. And he's got that big, goofy grin on his face. I don't know if you know the photo I'm talking about.
Yeah.
But
iconic.
It really melts my heart. Like he looks like such a child. It would scare the shit out of me going up in a fucking. They didn't know if they were going to die every single time.
Yeah.
And this guy's just sitting there smiling. This is the best. We're going to go walk on the moon and bounce around, and then people will say we faked it.
I know.
So you decided to go to the Philippines or Thailand?
I went to Thailand. So I was in Australia, and Thailand was, a $70 flight from Darwin. I was in Darwin, and I had this ad I'd found in a kickboxing magazine, and internet was sort of just coming on, and I emailed the guy who was running the camp, who was later killed in Vegas or something in very shady circumstances. But
which guy is this?
This guy Alex Gong, who used to run Fairtex and fought. He fought pretty well. He's in San Francisco. Excuse me. He was later killed in San Francisco. Chased down some robbers that they hit his car on their getaway, and he was training, and he saw him. He ran out and chased them down, and they shot him. Oh, Alex Gong. I actually got to work with him a little bit in Thailand, but he used to run Thailand and Fairtex, and at the time there was only really one gym that would take foreigners. And again, I wasn't the first guy to do this. There were Australians going, and
right, but
they were sleeping on the floor. They were, it was pretty rustic. It wasn't. They hadn't figured out that they could make more money from the farang than from the fighters. They hadn't figured out that turning Muay Thai into kind of like a tourism destination was going to be more profitable than their stable of fighters.
Right.
Which, when I went back in 04, 05, had changed. So now, instead of sleeping on the floor, they're all air conditioned and they have masseuses and pools. Yeah, no, they had really changed it, and you realize,
in the book, there's a picture of your view looking out the window where you sleep, and there's just from 18 feet from where you are, there's just an elephant just standing there.
Yeah, we had elephants in the backyard, and Thailand, the elephants will come into town, when they're not being used for logging, and they're good luck to go under on the way to work. And
really?
Yeah. So they have a whole, it's an industry. They have their whole thing they do, the elephants.
So you went to Thailand because you wanted to learn Muay Thai. It seemed exciting to you.
Yeah, I wanted to fight. I really thought, what I really wanted to do was, I was like, I should fight 10 times. I should fight 10 times because then I won't be scared of it anymore. Because it scared me. I've always, it was actually a line from The Bodyguard, which is a really cheesy movie, but it was he always talks about how things that scare him, he does. And I was like, that makes a lot of sense. And that's kind of what I do. When something scares me, I make sure I do it enough that it's not scary anymore, that you understand it enough, that you kind of could diffuse it. And, I ended up not, of course, fighting that many times, but I lived in Thailand for about 6 months, and I ended up catching a fight there, and which is actually in that documentary, which was Nat Geo.
We talked about it off mic. A Fighting Chance, the documentary. He's one of the 3 boxers that are being followed.
So it's on Vimeo. I don't know. Nat Geo is Nat Geo International, and they were kicking around, and of course they needed an English-speaking, somebody, because they had a kid who was fighting his way out of poverty, and they had a woman fighter who was kind of fighting sexism, and they needed an English-speaking guy. So they're like, "Do you mind?" And I was like, "Well, sure. I don't care. Better than pictures." But it meant I couldn't back out of the fight, so I ended up fighting this guy who came in last minute from Tokyo, and he was the Western Osaka heavyweight karate champ.
And for a moment in the book, you think maybe he's a Yakuza. You think
listen, I can't say he's a Yakuza for sure, but Yakuza, but he was missing a finger, full body tattoos, and he might have been just a poser, but he certainly thought he was Yakuza.
So you fight a guy that most likely is in Yakuza.
Yeah, and
but
definitely
more
had fights.
Importantly, if he's in the Yakuza or not, the Thais just bought full into the fact that he was Yakuza.
Yeah. No, they were terrified. I mean, like, I realized that later my corner and my friends were, like, really terrified and not into it and trying to get me to stop. And
how much weight did you have to lose?
I didn't, because he wasn't going to make weight.
I didn't want you to tip it.
Oh, sorry.
Because the thing in the book is, like, they're like, you got to get down to 188 or whatever the weight was, right? What was the weight?
I think that's a different fight, because this guy I knew was going to come in. He was like not going to weigh. I don't remember, but maybe he was.
You got down to, I think, 188, and then that's what the fight was going to be. And he's a Tokyo guy. He's a karate champion.
Yeah.
And then he just comes in at like 220.
He didn't weigh in.
And then the promoter says to you basically like, hey man, sorry, those are the breaks. And that was when you realized
that
how...
That happened to me in MMA too, later in Minnesota. Like almost the same thing happened. But yeah, he came in, didn't weigh in, like... was definitely warming up like a little hard, was like, but apparently he was like punching the wall and stuff, and the Thais were like loving it. They were like super, yeah. You can hear him in this video, which is funny. I've always wanted somebody to like call me out and be like, you're full of shit, you made that up. So I could bet him like, $10,000, and then I could be like, hey, look, here's the National Geo. The whole fight's there, you can see it, man. Like it all went down, like I said, it's just,
what amazed me about that fight was how... It seems in Muay Thai you wrote that you really, I'm guessing, oversimplified it. Was the person with the best conditioning wins?
It's Muay Thai is exhausting. Professional Muay Thai is certainly, it's a gnarly stamina event because of elbows and knees and working in the clinch, and kicking is kind of anaerobic too. So when you're throwing that kick, you're essentially holding your breath for that beat.
It's an explosion.
And yes, you're just sucking the oxygen out of your muscles, and your lactic acid levels are
those
building.
of you listening that aren't familiar with, fighting or anaerobic or aerobic, like just picture jogging, which is aerobic, and then just every once in a while in your jog, just jump up as high as you can 15 times in a row. That would be the aerobic part. So Muay Thai is...
And hold your breath, for part of it. And then, and see how you do. Yeah, it's because you wrestle and you try to throw a guy, and you kind of, some guys will hold their breath, and the Thais, what they're so great at is just being so cool and calm in the clinch, like that's their composure. And they use their face, in a way that is very interesting, which is, you hit them, they're like, there's a lot going on in the acting, and because you're trying to convince judges.
Never letting you know that they're tired is the big thing.
Yeah, never letting you didn't hurt me, They
don't
even
do
what
what Western boxers, if you really drill a guy in the ribs, they always stick their tongue out like, haha, that didn't hurt me. Which always means, of course, that you really hurt me.
Yeah.
But the Thais they hold super close. They play like great poker players.
Right.
It's a poker face that never goes away. No, you can't tell the difference between a guy that's about to pass out from exhaustion and a guy that just stepped into the ring.
It's huge. Like if you start breathing through their mouth, the whole betting odds swing. So if the guy opens his mouth, you'll see basically it was fueled by betting. It was crazy betting in like Lumpini Stadium was really the driving sort of behind Muay Thai. And what's interesting is in Thailand now, of course, they've gone to Premier League soccer. Had replaced Muay Thai as like the primary betting engine. So Muay Thai was on the decline until the foreign interests sort of picked it back up.
When you said that Muay Thai is such a stamina sport, you had broken down what you saw the Japanese karate champion doing prior to his fight. It speaks volumes of what the Fairtex gym instilled in you as far as just being able to observe. Like just this guy warming up, you were saying things like in your book, A Fighter's Heart, you were saying he's going to overheat because he's walking. I mean, I think the guy literally had on like a long sleeve shirt and a towel around his neck. And you were saying that towel is going to make his neck hot. Like weird, bitty things that nobody would notice. And he would be kind of shadow boxing, which fighters do all the time.
Right.
But it was a very humid place in Lumpini.
Yeah. No, this was not Lumpini. It was near Lumpini. It was in Bangkok, but it was not Lumpini.
In the stadium in Bangkok, you were saying he's going to overheat. And then your game plan was, if I can just sort of do what I've been taught and just hang around, I am going to beat this guy because he's not going to have energy at the end. That's how tiring Muay Thai fighting is.
Yeah, I mean, you definitely, you want to conserve every tiny little last bit of energy. So that's why Thai fighters get a hot oil massage before a fight, so they don't warm up. You don't do, 10 rounds of shadow boxing or, a lot of times you see boxers will work and jump rope and skip and stretch, and even MMA guys. Muay Thai, sit there. I'll massage you, get you all hot.
Okay.
You get boiling hot. So now you're all loosened up and ready to go. You might hit pads for 10 seconds, 15 seconds. That's for the big time pros. That's for like the guys at Lumpini. Because you have to conserve every last bit of energy for the fight itself.
You get a professional fight, and you were paid to fight this guy from Japan?
Yeah, I was paid like, $6 or $15.
Which over there is like $1 million, but you're welcome. You save your tweets, I know. That's fucked up, man.
Just save the tweets. Just let that one go. Let it slide.
Yeah, they're poor people.
You don't know anything about it.
So when you were taken by how young they start and the pageantry, it's almost like a Catholic funeral.
Yeah.
Like the dance and the incense and the respect and the flowers and the headdress that you wore. And
yeah, they play music. There's a live band going. Doom-ch, doom-ch, doom.
See, that shit is tight. They should do that during like boxing matches.
Yeah,
like,
have a live band the whole time.
Like Ward Dawson, they should just have Outkast.
Absolutely.
It's the return of the gangsta. Like just have some.
And if it gets a little slow, you get them to pick it up. Hit that beat a little harder. And the band they'll try to pick it up for them in the last 30 seconds.
For the real, for the straw weights, you just play yakety sax of Benny Hill. How you must have been, I didn't get this in the book, but I can't imagine you weren't terrified.
Yeah.
Gripped with fear. And I didn't get that at all in the book. And I don't think it's because of your ego. Maybe at the time of writing, you didn't think it was worthy of going you probably thought it was a given that we knew you were scared. But now, and I didn't really think of it till right now, foreign country, everyone's speaking a different tongue. Everyone knows the same song and dance. There's a live band, and people are betting if you open your mouth, there's money changing hands.
Yeah.
You could really fuck up this whole afternoon for everybody just by.
I think I was a dog to start with. You know what I mean? Yeah.
Not dinner.
Maybe both. No, I think fear is something that you really, you ascribe it after the fact. You don't really know what fear is at the moment. What they call is disassociation, when you sort of. You get kind of like in a dream state, or you sort of don't know what's going on. And later you can say, I was shitting my pants, or I was terrified. But in the moment, it doesn't really feel that way.
See, I'm the opposite. I'm terrified. I've told this to my oldest son, Jackie. I hosted the NHL awards, and I was like uncharacteristically terrified. It was live on TV, and you got to go out.
Yeah.
And my son, he does karate down the street, green belt, tight.
There you go,
nice.
Yeah.
Nice. He's good. He's doing like crane shit for me.
Hey, man, it's all good, dude.
It's great.
It's all good.
And I told him, I was scared until I realized I knew what I was doing.
Right.
And then, oddly, I popped my ears, and I realized my head was all
you were all, right.
When I popped my ears, I could hear everything clearer.
Right.
And then I went, I have all these jokes, and I've already put them into teleprompter. This is going
to take care of itself.
Laugh, I'll just act like it's killing, and maybe they'll sweeten it. But what you're saying is the exact opposite. Going in, I think that's almost the indoctrination of being in a camp with other fighters and preparing.
Yeah,
and that mindset that you just almost not like a lemming, because that is such a negative connotation.
Right. No, but you're going to let the chain of events happen.
The strength of the pack being the wolf.
Yeah.
You're in a wolf pack, and we go in, and then we just eat shit when we get in the ring, and you just go, all right, I'm going to get in.
No, absolutely. That's a very good way of putting it. No, that's totally, I think, which is why, people always talk about fighting as an individual sport, and it's not at all. I mean, it's very much a team sport. It's very much about who you train with, particularly MMA. I mean, when I hear somebody say MMA it's like, you have no idea what you're talking about, because, nobody is getting awesome in their gym by them, in their garage, by themselves, hitting a bag. It's your trainers, it's your people that you're with, and the people who get you through those weeks and those days and those hours and those minutes and get you ready,
Guys willing to run with you at 4 a.m.
And
for the listener, Sam Sheridan isn't a fighter. He's a Harvard graduate who's a writer.
Yeah.
Who decided to write, was it Men's Health? Men's Journal?
Men's Journal. Yeah, Men's Journal.
For Men's Journal, he said, hey, I'm going to Thailand to fight. You guys could give me...
No, that actually happened much later.
Just agree with me,
Sorry,
Sam.
brother.
Jesus.
Sorry.
No, tell me what happened.
But the MMA one, I did sell that to them like that. But
right,
and
you got them to finance your trip.
Yeah.
And your travels is ingenious.
I smoothed it.
That is where a Harvard education really comes into play. If you're going to get punched in the face, have Men's Journal pay for it.
Yeah, well, that was Winter and Rolling Stone and all that, and they were trying to start a book imprint, so they were going to be...
But I needed the listeners, it was important for the listeners to know, because we've been talking about fighting for about a half hour.
Sorry.
I just need them to know, you're not, I'm not sitting down with a Muay Thai fighter or a guy. This is a guy, Sam Sheridan's a guy, and his book is